During World War II, the skies over Europe and the Pacific were filled with danger. Enemy fighters, anti-aircraft fire, explosions lighting up the night. It was a terrifying, high-stakes environment where every second counted. But amidst this chaos, American and Allied pilots began reporting something else. Something that wasn't on any aircraft recognition chart. Something unknown. It started with a few scattered reports, then it became a steady stream. American and Allied pilots, flying everything from heavy bombers to nimble fighters, described glowing objects appearing near their planes. Bright, fiery red, orange, or white lights. Sometimes they appeared as metallic, disc-shaped objects that glinted in the sun. They were perfectly silent. They did not show up on radar, which was still a new technology, but was becoming more and more reliable. They did not respond to any radio calls, and most unsettling of all, they did not behave like any known aircraft. Imagine you're a young pilot, thousands of feet in the air, deep in enemy territory. Your focus is entirely on your mission and on staying alive. Suddenly, a bright light appears off your wingtip. It's not a friendly plane, it's not an enemy plane. It's just there. It matches your speed perfectly, whether you're flying straight and level or taking evasive action. It doesn't seem hostile, but it's an unknown, and in a war zone, the unknown is terrifying. These strange objects would follow bomber formations for miles, sometimes flying in formation right beside them, sometimes hovering above them, almost like an escort. Other times, they would trail directly behind, a silent, glowing companion in the dark. The pilots, confused and a bit unnerved, needed a name for what they were seeing, drawing from a popular comic strip of the time called Smokey Stover, where the main character would often say, "Where there's foo, there's fire." The pilots started calling these mysterious lights Foo Fighters. It wasn't meant as a joke, but as a practical term for something they couldn't explain. The flight characteristics of these Foo Fighters were what truly baffled the pilots, and later, the intelligence officers who read their reports. The objects could accelerate from a standstill to incredible speeds almost instantly. They could perform hairpin turns and vertical climbs that would have torn apart any conventional aircraft and subjected any human pilot to crushing G-forces. And most perplexingly, they showed no visible means of propulsion. No engines, no exhaust flames, no wings, no sound. They just moved, seemingly at will, defying the known laws of aerodynamics and physics. Naturally, the first assumption was that these were secret enemy weapons. The Allied command was deeply concerned. Were these some new kind of German or Japanese drone designed to disrupt bomber formations or gather intelligence? Urgent reports were sent back to intelligence units. Top-secret investigations were launched. Air crews were debriefed in great detail. But the investigations hit a dead end. No country claimed responsibility. Through intelligence channels, it was confirmed that Germany denied any involvement. They were just as puzzled by the sightings as the Allies were. Japan also denied having any such technology. Even American commanders, faced with a growing pile of credible reports from their best pilots, had to admit they had absolutely no explanation. As the war progressed, the sightings increased. They were reported over France during the Normandy campaign. They were seen frequently over Germany during the intense bombing raids of 1944 and 1945, and they weren't limited to Europe. Pilots in the Pacific Theater, flying missions against Japan, reported eerily similar encounters. The phenomenon was global. Some pilots, feeling threatened by the unknown presence, tried to engage the objects. They would maneuver to get a firing solution and let loose with their machine guns. But the results were always the same. Nothing happened. The bullets seemed to have no effect. The lights didn't react, didn't shatter, didn't explode. They would simply move away at an impossible speed, or in some cases, just vanish in the blink of an eye. Poof, gone. As if they were never there to begin with. Other pilots reported a more curious and less threatening interaction. The objects would approach, fly alongside them for a while, and then suddenly extinguish or zip away into the darkness. Over time, despite the initial fear, a strange pattern was noticed. The Foo Fighters never showed any hostile intent. They never attacked. Not a single aircraft was ever reported to be damaged or shot down by one of these objects. They just seemed to observe. They followed. and then they disappeared. Their purpose, if they had one, remained a complete mystery. When the war finally ended in 1945, the world celebrated. But the mystery of the Foo Fighters lingered. The official reports, filled with first-hand accounts from decorated combat veterans, were quietly archived. No official conclusions were ever reached. Military intelligence simply labeled the phenomenon unidentified. They didn't say it was extraterrestrial. They didn't say it was a weather phenomenon. They just admitted it was unknown. For decades, these incredible stories remained buried in dusty files, largely forgotten by the public. Then, years later, historians and researchers began digging into these archives. They rediscovered the reports, signed by experienced pilots and crew members. These weren't men prone to fantasy or hysteria. They were combat veterans, trained to identify friendly and enemy aircraft in fractions of a second under the most extreme pressure imaginable. And from different squadrons, in different theaters of war, they all described the same thing. Silent, glowing objects that maneuvered in impossible ways. World War II was the largest and most destructive conflict in human history, fought with incredible technology, brilliant strategy, and unimaginable sacrifice. But it seems that in the middle of humanity's greatest war, something else was present. Something was watching from the sidelines, and to this day, more than 75 years later, no one knows exactly what it was. The Foo Fighters remain one of the most compelling and unsolved mysteries of the 20th century. Love this story? Hit that like button. Subscribe for more awesome adventures into history's coolest mysteries. You won't want to miss what's coming next. See you next time.